Hello, children, and welcome to our second lesson about the Titanic. In today's lesson, we are going to sequence the stages of the sinking of the Titanic. Sequencing means putting events in order of how they happened, so putting them in chronological order. So, the very first thing you need to do is to locate your history pack about the Titanic. And in the history pack, you have one of the versions of the pictures about the Titanic's sinking. So you need to find your pictures. At the moment, you only need the pictures. Some of you have a version with some text underneath. Some of you have a text separately, and some of you only have pictures. You need to locate your pictures and have a very, very good look at each of the pictures, children. What do you see? What is happening on each of the pictures, children? Now, have a go at ordering those pictures in chronological order. So which of these pictures do you think would have happened first? Which of these do you think would have happened last? Have a go at putting them in order. Now, don't be tricked by these little red numbers, children, because they are not the numbers of the order of the pictures, children. Now, pause this video and have a go at placing these pictures in order. Don't worry about getting them completely right at this point. And please do not glue them anywhere yet. Perhaps order them, just place them on your work desk for now in the order that you think they have happened. So pause the video now and have a go at ordering your pictures first. Now that you've ordered all the pictures, come back to the video and let's watch a little clip about the sinking of the Titanic, children, together. This will help us to make sure that we have ordered all the pictures in the order of how they happened.
The sinking of the Titanic, 1912. The luxury British passenger liner, RMS Titanic, began construction on March 31, 1909, in the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland, and was completed 3 years later in 1912. As one of 3 Olympic-class ocean liners, it was designed to be the largest luxury passenger ship in the world and would cost $7.5 million to build. It had a length of 882 feet 9 inches, or 269.1 meters, a height of 175 feet, or 53.3 meters, and a width of 92 feet 6 inches, or 28 meters, and it weighed 46,328 tons. Below the waterline was the orlop decks for cargo, and the tank top where the engines, boilers, turbines, and electrical generators were. At the very top was the boat deck, where the bridge and wheelhouse were, as well as the lifeboats. In between were the decks for passengers with first, second, and third class cabins. The level of luxury was so high that second class was comparable to first class on any other ship. The 2,240 passengers would be from all walks of life, from millionaires and celebrities to poor immigrants looking for a better life in America. The ship would act like a floating hotel, featuring a grand staircase which allowed first-class passengers to move from deck to deck, and had a domed skylight to allow natural light in. The ship also featured a gymnasium, dining saloons, a reading room, a barber shop, a squash court, a Turkish bath, and a swimming pool. The ship carried 20 out of a possible 64 lifeboats. Therefore, there were only enough for half the ship's population. However, this was within legal requirements. Lifeboats were only intended for carrying passengers to rescue ships and not keep the entire ship population afloat. As a result, the company who owned the Titanic, White Star Line, felt complacent enough to keep the number of lifeboats low so the deck wasn't cluttered. Many claimed the Titanic was unsinkable because its hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments. It was said that if up to 4 of these flooded, the ship would still stay buoyant. All of these qualities drew the press to frequently talk about the new passenger liner. Disaster. In the morning of April 10, 1912, passengers began boarding the Titanic in Southampton, England, with large crowds gathering to watch the ship depart. At noon, the Titanic set sail under command of Captain Edward Smith, beginning her maiden voyage. It would stop at Cherbourg, France, and then Queenstown, Ireland, to pick up more passengers, and then begin its journey across the North Atlantic Ocean towards New York City. On April 14, 1912, warnings were coming in of icebergs from other liners, so Captain Smith had plotted a new course and continued to steam at full speed, which was standard practice. As it became dark, the temperatures were dropping to below freezing, and there was no moonlight or waves, making it difficult to see approaching icebergs. At 11:40 p.m. ship's time, the ship's lookout, Frederick Fleet, spotted an iceberg from the crow's nest. He rang the warning bell and telephoned the officers at the ship's bridge, shouting, "Iceberg right ahead." Fleet had spotted the iceberg with his eyes, as the crow's nest binoculars were locked away. The key's owner, Officer David Blair, had been removed from the Titanic's crew at the last minute and forgot to hand over the key. The officers on the bridge quickly turned the ship away from the iceberg, but it was too late. The Titanic grazed the iceberg along its side, ripping several holes in its hull below the waterline, with fragments of ice hitting the deck. At first, everyone felt relief. The lookouts and the passengers didn't even feel the collision. 11:50 p.m. Captain Smith and the ship architect, Thomas Andrews, went to inspect the damage. They knew the ship would start sinking, and by this time, 6 of the watertight compartments at the front of the ship's hull were already breached and began flooding. 12 a.m. The captain sent out a distress call over the radio in the hopes that there were other ships nearby, and gave the order for the Titanic's passengers to board the lifeboats. He knew there were only enough for half the population of the Titanic. At 12:25, the lifeboats began their loading, with women and children first, as this was the protocol at sea. Many passengers still did not understand what was going on, and confusion and disorganization meant that the first lifeboat to leave had only 28 women and children aboard, when it could carry 65 people. First Officer Murdoch took the order to mean women and children first, then men if they were there, while Second Officer Lightoller took it to mean women and children only. The Carpathia, which was 58 miles away, heard the distress call and began sailing towards the sinking Titanic to rescue the passengers. Distress flares were shot into the sky to help locate the sinking Titanic. By 1 a.m., with the lower decks flooding, the bow of the ship began to sink below the water's surface. Water was pouring in 15 times faster than it could be pumped out, which was not helped by the fact that many of the passengers had left their portholes open. The unsupported stern and its propellers rose out of the water into the air. Panic and chaos set in as lifeboats were running out. Some people pushed their way to the lifeboats, while others accepted their fate and stayed behind or gave up their spots to more vulnerable passengers. Many did not want to survive the disaster and be branded a coward back home. By 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat had left, but 1,500 people were left on the ship. The deck was now at a steep height, and many passengers fell into the freezing, icy waters. At 2:17 a.m., the captain announced, "Every man for himself." The stern gave way under the pressure and broke off, with the front half disappearing to the bottom of the ocean. At some point, Captain Smith went down with the ship, a maritime tradition that the captain would do in accepting responsibility for all on board. Smashing into the water's surface became level and soon started to fill with water, sinking nearly 4 kilometers beneath the surface of the ocean. Many died as a result of drowning, but the main cause of death was hypothermia in the freezing waters, which occurred within minutes. Some of the lifeboats returned, but only 4 survivors were found. At 3:30 a.m., the distress flares from the Titanic were spotted by the Carpathia. The Carpathia arrived to the scene at 4:10 a.m. and picked up the lifeboats. only 705 passengers would survive the disaster, with over 1,500 people losing their lives.
What a disaster, children. Now, you can go back to your pictures now and have a go. Check whether you sequenced them correctly. Did you get all of the events in the right order? Your task for today is to make sure that all of to create a timeline of the events of how the Titanic disaster happened. Now you have a choice in your pack. You have either this set of pictures with the text, where you need to read the text carefully and use it to help you to sequence the events in the correct order. Or you have two pieces of paper. You have a sheet with the pictures and a sheet with the text. And your task is to read the text carefully and match up the text with the correct pictures. And then make sure that they are placed in the correct order. And then finally, the trickiest task is when you just have the pictures with some empty space underneath, where your task is to write a summary of what happened in each picture. Obviously, that is after you have put them in order. Now, as a challenge today, can you add any other important events to your timeline? There were a number of other events that were described in the video, children. Can you add them to your timeline? We are very much looking forward to seeing all your lovely work on the tapestry. Bye for now.